This previously recorded episode of the Artist's Dojo was recorded August 9th of 2021.
Nona Socha is a New York City-based guitarist and harmonica player from Carpi, Italy. He began playing the guitar at 12, influenced by artists like Bob Dylan and Neil Young. While studying music, he discovered the blues and immediately fell in love. His favorite blues artists include Mississippi John Hurt, Muddy Waters, B.B. King, and Lightning Hopkins. Nona has created his own signature sound, pairing fiery guitar technique with virtuosic harmonica playing. He has expanded his repertoire to an electric mixture of jazz, R&B, country, and pop. He won a Jimi Hendrix Award while studying at Berklee College of Music, receiving a BA in guitar performance. Nona has toured, performed, and recorded with GRAMMY Award-Winners. Nona was featured alongside SZA and other artists as part of a Mastercard's Start Something Priceless campaign in 2018. His work has also been highlighted on iHeartRADIO podcast Sleepwalkers, as well as Reddit for his year-long project entitled The Everyday Project on his YouTube channel called Blind Selfie 2019, which literally has hundreds of videos, and I'm sure most of you know that, so definitely check it out.
There's probably like 600 of them by now.
Yeah, there's a bunch.
I just posted one today, speaking of.
He has musicians like John Mayer shouting him out on TikTok and other social media platforms, which they shout him out for his amazing musical abilities. And if you haven't seen it, Blind in the Pandemic, which Nona was featured in for CBS New York, was pretty amazing. Nona Socha, welcome to the Artist Dojo.
Thanks for having me. Good to see you again. It's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a while, man. How have you been holding up with everything?
Well, I mean, pretty good considering, last year was not easy. This year seems to be a little bit better, working a good bit in the summer. Hopefully they don't shut us down again, but it's looking like things are good.
We talked a few times early when all this pandemic stuff started, and you were still just like cracking away and being creative, and it's pretty amazing to see that you're being recognized.
For a while I didn't actually, because it was like, it felt weird to play music when, a lot of people were dying, especially like, being from Italy, like that's where it all started in a way, like when it started being, really. And so it was like February and I was seeing all this crazy stuff and we were still open and we're like, oh, not a big deal. And I was like, I don't know, man, we're going to shut down. And like 2 weeks later we shut down. I was like, yeah, I kind of knew that was happening. So, it was weird. And for the first, little bit, I didn't play much. I didn't feel right doing that. I was more like, talking to people, and I was by myself anyway. So yeah, it was, a bit of a.
I think when you did start playing again, I think it definitely helped a lot of people. I would notice in the comments, like they would feel a sense of
cheer. It
seemed
like it. It seemed like it, and I was like, what else am I gonna do? But it took me a while to get to that, like a month or so. But it's funny because like in the summer of last year, I actually played for tips and everything, so I didn't really feel like I was rusty much when I went back and played with people because I was already doing a lot of videos. But I saw a lot of my friends who were like had tendinitis issues and pain issues because they just hadn't been playing as much or as hard as you play when you play live. So I was actually pretty lucky not to have any really.
That's interesting. Issues. It's like athletics, you can't just jump in and expect to.
Especially if you haven't done it in a while. And a lot of my friends had issues. Like, a lot of people I talked to were like, oh man, like it's been tendinitis. I had to take off for certain gigs. And because basically a lot of people didn't even gig last year. I was fortunate to have like a couple of things a week because, being like having a lot of different instruments and a lot of being adaptable to different setups. I played outside. But a lot of people didn't do that, so like they literally didn't really work last year. And then this year, like June came and boom, everybody started working like crazy. And they were just like, man, I haven't done this in over a year. So it's like for a lot of people, it's actually pretty challenging physically.
Yeah, the stamina changes, I can assume, just like any kind of sport.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because I mean, and the thing is, like, you still play. Like, it's not that people didn't practice. I mean, some people may have not practiced as much because you didn't even know if you could do this for a living anymore. So I'm sure some people didn't. But even if people did, like, it's not the same as actually playing a show. So.
Yeah. Well, as a performer, you know that feeling, like when you get back into it and then everything bubbles up and it's like nerves and, you know, every single thing that your mind makes you think of before you start doing it again.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. For me, it's, I don't really get like that. For me, it's usually like excitement and make sure that I deliver. But I've never really been somebody to like overthink these kind of things. So it's not that I go with like a, you know, like.
Wow. No, I love that. I love to hear that because everybody has a different take. Some people are, you know, whether it's performers of any kind, they have this like intense nervousness going into something, and then as soon as they take that first step, they're good. Like that, whatever that thing is that's in their mind goes away.
Yeah, no, not really. But I also don't really do. I mean, obviously, there's music that I need to learn, but it's like if I played classical music, that would be different. But still, like I think.
So you don't ever get that kind of feeling ever?
Not very much, especially lately. Like I feel like the more stuff has gotten better, the more I feel like, you know, it's not really a thing, not much of an issue, honestly. Like it's like I'm like if I'm here, then I don't really have to worry about anything. That's kind of my approach.
Yeah, no, I love it. I need a little bit of a little more of that in my own life, I think.
Yeah.
All right, so one of the first questions I like to ask is, in the past, there was a reverence for artists, storytellers, griots, tribal elders, I mean, in your case, musicians. Do you think that still exists today? Is that a cultural
I mean,
thing?
yeah, it's different. It's just a different thing. Like now, I think a lot of people are interested in seeing the human side of people, which I mean, a lot of people think that it's lack of respect. I don't think that's true. I just think that it's a different dynamic. Like people, you know, and I mean, it could be more stressful in certain ways, but I think that people really want to see who you are as a person. And I mean, you know, obviously the more famous you are, the more you get like people that judge you and haters, but that's everybody. I think at the time it was the same. But, you know, at the time you were more behind some sort of barrier. Now people want to see you, which I prefer personally. Because I like to interact with people and I'm just me. So like, I'm not trying to be some kind of, you know, famous person, diva, whatever. I don't care about that. So for me, it's better. But I can see how for somebody that comes from that, it's a bit more difficult because you're a lot like, it's just a different dynamic. But I mean, I'm okay with it. I just think that this is the stand of the times and I don't think there is anything wrong with it. You just kind of have to adapt and I mean, at the end, that's what we all do anyway. Like when we all do, so it's not that we're special because we're artists or musicians. Like we all have to figure it out in some way. So, yeah.
I find you to be that way. I mean, obviously, anyone who's seen your work, you're very adaptable in the moment. One of the funniest things, for everyone listening, Noe one time played a benefit that I held for the Wounded Warrior Project. This was a few years ago at this point.
2016, I think.
Yeah, and one of the funniest things was there were all these different groups of performers, and prior there was a group that did like improv comedy based on a song from Greece.
Oh, yeah.
And they were done, the crowd laughed, it was pretty funny, and then, you know, Noah's setting up, and all of a sudden he just starts playing something from Greece, bum, 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 bum,
Yeah.
bum, bum, and it was, everyone lost their mind because he decided to flow from the previous thing into what was next. So it was so much fun, and I'll never forget that night. So
yeah,
again, thank you. Even years later.
It was interesting because like that was an example of certain things. Like, so I remember, you know, I had a friend there and she was like, oh man, like, because they literally, like, everybody was blown away by the, you know, the community group. Everyone was like, and my friend was like, man, how are you going to follow that? And I was like, not concerned because I just figured, all right, my job in this moment is to kind of bring and gel all this together because there wasn't really, I mean, there were performances at the beginning, but it was not really like, it was different and kind of shifted away from that. So it's like, how do you bring it back in a way that makes sense? So that's kind of what I did. And then after that, I kind of invited the other artists on stage and we all kind of ended together. And I think that was really, you know, me being like, all right, this is what's going on. Let's make something work and have fun with it. And like, I certainly wasn't trying to like, because a lot of mistake that a lot of musicians make is they try to compete with what's going on to try to better it. And I think that's wrong because you're like, no matter what you do, like if you're really gonna better it, you have to be like extremely better, because like there's already the surprise of what's already happened is already taken away. So if you do the same thing, even if you do it just a tiny bit better, it's not going to be received the same way, because that thing was already seen. So you have to figure something out that kind of goes from there into your direction, but you still have that you can take it from, and it makes it like a smoother transition.
Yeah.
That's why I don't really worry about that kind of stuff, because I just kind of figure it out as it goes. You read your audience and you figure out what's happening, what people liked, and you do you still, because I still played me.
Yeah.
But I think just being careful, like, and attentive to what's going on is like really half the job to be able to do something that is going to be impactful.
Yeah, you acknowledge it and flow with it. I mean, to this day, when I talk to my friends about that night, they crack up, because they're like, man, that was such a out of nowhere thing. Because like you said, they were expecting maybe it almost felt like it was these separate moments.
Yeah.
But then you brought it all together. So
yeah, and I feel like a lot of people, like, I think it's a bit egotistical. Everybody's like, oh man, I gotta show my blah blah blah. I'm like, okay, that's cool, like you can do that, but I think you can bring so much more in certain situations when you can kind of bring people together, because it's because it's smoother. I mean, I still did what I wanted, but it made sense with what was happening, and I think like more people should do that. But I think people are like insecurities, and they're like, oh, I prepared this, so this is what I have to stick to. And I'm like, sometimes you realize that that's not really what works the best.
yeah. Let me see if I can find the quote. Trying to float through here. I think Ada Pasternak said, "Don't you worry about a thing."
Hi, Ada. I just played with her a couple of weeks ago. She was here in New York. She's in LA. She's a great school friend.
So, do you consider yourself? This might seem like a simple question, but I tend to get sometimes different answers from people. You consider yourself an artist, craftsman, both, neither, musician, something different altogether?
I mean, I guess musician is what I do, so I guess that makes sense. I don't know.
Yeah, I know. But you know how some actors will say, "Oh, I'm an artist," or some people will be like, "No, I'm a craftsman." So I think you're very beautifully keep it succinct and simple. So
yeah,
pronounced Ada rhymes with Prada. Okay,
that's right.
Thank you for helping me with that. So what do you think it means to be a musician in today's world?
I don't know, man. I think everybody figures it out their own way. I can't say, because, there's so much, like, with a lot of the stuff that's produced, like, the older way to make music, like, you get good at your instrument and, somebody picks you up. Like, it doesn't quite work that way anymore. Like, you have to have some sort of social media presence and, some sort of online presence of some way where you show your stuff. And then people will take you. It's very rare to find somebody that's like my age and younger that gets a gig because they're just like, closed up in a room and play music, because like people have to see it. And so like so much of it is about actually doing that. So, that I think that's something that needs to be remembered. But I mean, you just adapt to the times, as I said earlier, and figure it out as you go. I mean, I don't know. I think everybody has a different meaning to it. I can't really say. Like,
I don't think there's any one
statement.
Yeah, I don't think there's any one answer to it. It's just more maybe what your experience is. I could say just from looking from the outside in that the volume of work that you're putting out, and not just like, spilling it out into the consciousness, but quality work that you're putting out. I think that's a huge reason, a number of these celebrities and people, especially on TikTok. I mean, I just recently got on there and I saw you and I was like, holy cow,
yeah,
you're doing really well, as you should. The thing is constantly
the secret, and this is how I was resistant to TikTok because it's not accessible. And, we could talk about accessibility a whole bunch, but these apps are not designed for me to use them. And that's the annoying part. But people were like, you need to get on there, you need to get on there. I was just like, oh God, I don't want to because I know it's not going to work, and it doesn't. It still doesn't work well for me. Like I can post, I can do everything, but it's not it's not fun. It's annoying. You always have to deal with like some sort of issue, and I can't even upload videos from the app directly. I have to upload it from my phone to the app. So like, that already takes the algorithm down. So, at least I had a friend who was helping me earlier in the year, and she is basically the reason why I'm here now, because if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't have all these videos that got all these views, because if you take videos from the app, it works better. And the algorithm pushes it more. But I can't do that. So you just have so much limitation being blind and doing all this stuff. But the secret really is to get onto the thing that the famous people are on before it gets oversaturated. Because what happens after that is, at first you can get your stuff on there and you can post it for free, and you can get picked up for free because they're basically trying to create viral influencers. And then once that's done and they see that people are on there no matter what, then they start charging you to promote your stuff. And that basically means that you're done, because, people don't really watch promoted content as much. So that's why Instagram, it's doing all right now for me, but it's only doing good because of TikTok. I've been posting so much stuff on Instagram the last 3 years, and before the John Mayer thing, I barely had 4,000 followers. Now it's at 11.5, but it's just because of that. But if I got on Instagram in 2014, 2015, I'm sure, with what I do, and the frequency I post, it would have really picked up for me then. But it wasn't really accessible. So I was just and I also didn't have all the means to do the videos on my own at the time. So, it's really, that's the secret. Get on the next platform that everybody talks about. As soon as people start talking about it, you get on it, start posting, and something will happen if you're good. That seems to be...
Well, that's the key. Something will happen if you're good, because I think you could have been posting a ton and it might not have had the same effect. Christy Martin 9736 says, "Glad you did, because I would have never seen you."
Right, yeah. I mean, that's the thing. A lot of people, and another funny thing that happened now that I'm I got that recognition is you have a lot of accounts on Instagram that are guitar promotional videos, and you have to pay for them to repost you. But because they want to make themselves look good, hope none of them is watching, but even if they are, they know that this is the truth. Because they want to make themselves look good, they repost my John Mayer reshare. And they're like, oh, wow, that's crazy. And so they make people believe that, somebody possibly paid for that. Because after that, they say, message us to purchase a guaranteed feature. And of course, that video blows up because of John Mayer. So it's everybody's commenting on it. And you're just oh, well, thanks for the free promotion. I appreciate it. And I actually have paid for these accounts to promote me before, because I was trying to increase my Instagram. And it didn't really work. But because of this, through these accounts, I got a lot of followers. Because, people, a lot of people actually follow these accounts, but these posts with celebrities get a lot of more engagement. So, if you're doing it yourself, you're mostly going to waste your money. But if you're lucky like I was, that something like that happened, then, you see that these accounts actually have a good amount of followers. It's really interesting. And it's I don't know.
And it's it's an intense journey, social media and all that, but you're navigating it really well, and I think now is the tipping point for you, where people are seeing what you've been doing.
I hope it's just the beginning. I don't want it to be the tipping point. I feel
into the net, it's like a roller coaster. It goes into one and then it leads you into a bigger,
Well, yeah. And
so
the
I
thing
think
is I got the Angelico endorsement, thing, and obviously Breed Love and Seidel. So those are 3 companies, and the fact that they reposted me here and there definitely helps. And, I also, got in touch with a couple of people I'm playing with. I don't know if you know Josh Hardman, the drummer, that has a bunch of followers on TikTok, and he's friends with some friends. We have a gig together in a couple of weeks, but if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't have been able to, get that. So.
Well, I'm happy. I'm happy that it has, man. And I think a bunch of people here have been writing kind of a similar thing, saying that they're happy that you did do that. So that's good. I know you started playing guitar when you were 12, correct?
Yeah.
So was there a specific moment within that time or a different time where you realized that's what you wanted to do with your life? And if so, could you share that moment?
I mean, I think it kind of was always that, but I didn't really think of it like, oh, I want to make a living being a musician until later, like, because I was having fun. I was having fun with it. And, you know, sorry. Yeah, I just got distracted for a second. But yeah, I was having fun with it, and I was 12 years old. And, you know, then after that, I really started, you know, just playing every day. And for me, it's always been about reaching the next goal. So, like, musically, let's say, oh, I want to learn this song now. Like, and for me, it's always been fun. Obviously, now, like, I'm older, so, like, I have goals, you know, a little bit more, like, trying to figure out, like, you know, how to make money and everything. But it was a bit of an organic thing. And, like, you know, going to Berklee came pretty early on. You know, so it's just kind of always organically towards that direction. I don't think there was like a moment where I was like, oh, this is what I'm going to do for a living. I didn't really focus on anything else as far as me making a living, you know, in that. So, like, I mean, obviously I have a lot of other interests, but it's not easy to find a job as a blind person. Like, you don't have that many occupations that are rewarding, that are just available to you. So, like, I didn't really think I could possibly do something else, even though I think I could be intelligent enough to do it. But it's like figuring out a way to make it work is actually pretty challenging, just because, you know. So it's just like, yeah. So it was kind of all an organic thing, honestly.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's also very revealing, because I don't know if a lot of people just, as you know, you have people who are hearing you now that are, you know, sighted and all this other, you know, ways of their life. They probably just don't think. It's like certain things are secondary to them. So,
yeah,
you know, you saying that, like, hey, these apps are difficult to use, or, you know, what kind of job can I find to finance the things that I want to be doing? So you're playing guitar and you maybe can't really think of other stuff, because you're like, hey, how am I gonna, you know, cover the bills and all this other stuff. So thank you for bringing those things up, because I think they can very easily kind of fall by the wayside in a conversation, you know?
Yeah.
So how do you navigate being a musician in your personal life? I guess that's a big question, but
in what way? Like, in what environments? Like,
well, we were talking a little bit about social media, so I think, you know, that was actually pretty revealing, that you're, you know, so aware of the landscape of it, of like, hey, if you get onto an app early and put the work on, you'd rather do that sooner than later. So I guess with like things like traveling around or getting gigs or communicating with people as a musician, is that more just like people see you and say, hey, do you want to get on this gig? Do you want to work on something together?
I mean, some of that, you know people, and then you go to gigs, and then you meet people, and then they hear you play, and then you kind of meet some club owners, and, you know, people see you, and then, you know, you get the gigs. It's the hustle, the New York hustle. But it's the same for everybody. So it's the same for me as it is for everybody else. You know, I try to be as independent as possible when I travel. So I take, you know, the train or the, you know, bus, but a lot of times I take Access a Ride, which is this like MTA service. And, you know, with that, you really, like, it's a bit of a pain, because you have to, like, you know, reserve it the day before, and sometimes they pick you up really early, and they, you know, you have to wait a super long time. So, you know, it's a bit of a pain sometimes, but, you know, New York is really the only place where you can, you know, automatically, like, get anywhere you need to be in the 5 boroughs without needing a car. So that's why I'm here. I mean, one of the many reasons. But Access a Ride is basically for people not in New York. It's basically, you know, as I said, a service that picks you up. It's a car that takes you from home to where you need to be in the 5 boroughs. Sometimes you pick up other people. Yeah.
My mother uses the same service, so I am aware of it. Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, it's pretty. It's cool in a way. Like, I'm not gonna say that it's exciting or super nice, because a lot of the times, you know, you just have long waits, and you have to wait outside, and so, like, it's not that fun. It's not like, oh wow, you know, you have to take a lot of sacrifices in that. But, you know, it's still, I'm grateful that it exists, because when I lived in Boston, it was a lot harder for me to make gigs compared to here, because a lot of places didn't have it, or it wasn't 24 hours. So, that was a bit of an issue. So, this is really helpful. And, I can do any gig in the 5 boroughs, at any time.
Was that one of the reasons you decided to come from Boston to New York?
I mean, plus all the best musicians are here, so there is that. But, I would not live in LA because you don't have the same kind of accommodations, It's like,
it's definitely challenging.
It's harder. So, like, I know I'm not moving anywhere anytime soon. Like, I'm going to stay here, because if I want to be independent and self-sufficient, I need to be here. And as far as gigs, like, reading music I can read Braille music, but I never use it. It's not really practical. I usually learn stuff by ear. There are certain gigs that may be harder for me to do, like, Broadway or a wedding band or things like that, just because, you may have to see cues or things like that. And, that's impossible.
So I read somewhere one of the comment responses that you gave to someone on YouTube, where they asked, how do you learn the songs? And you said that you learn some of them just the day of.
Oh, yeah,
by ear?
Yeah, a lot of them out the day is like the same day. Yeah, it depends on how hard the song is, how much time I have. But yeah, a lot of songs I can learn it like the same day as I post them.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, that when I was doing a video every day for a whole year, I had to learn a lot of them on that day. So, obviously that was a big thing.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Can you mentioned a little bit earlier about that you have goals for yourself. Can you share some of them, like some of the bigger scope goals that you may have for yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I would like to give back at some point. So, like, if I can make a bigger name for myself and get some sponsors and stuff, it would be nice to go to places where people don't have as many opportunities, and, help build, facilities or connections for other people that want to be musicians that weren't as, fortunate as I was, because, obviously the Berklee thing, but, like, I had a scholarship, and then, everything worked out for me, and, it's working out in some way. So, but I know there are a lot of places where that's not possible. Like, even if somebody gets a connection, they may not have the money or whatever. So it would be cool to be able to give back in places where that is not a possibility. So, in the long term, that's the thing. But for now, we'll see. COVID is kind of screwing everything up. So I'm not sure what's going to happen.
Well, that's commendable. That's really beautiful. One of the next things I was thinking of is, like, I was going to ask you, what motivates you to keep going on the path that you're on? You may have kind of answered it with some of the bigger goals that you have, but are there other motivations?
Well, I love music, and I love when I have a good musical experience. And I mean, I'm not really qualified to do anything else. So, I mean, I'm not saying I'm stuck with it, because that's not the way I feel, but I mean, that's what I've been doing. So it's like, you just do that. It's just like, you realize that no matter what you do, you will have to spend some time figuring it out, and it may not be easy to find an occupation, so it's like, and I like it, I love playing music and playing different types of music. So,
How do you deal with failures, mistakes, regrets?
I don't know. I mean, it happens to everybody, but I mean, I don't really, like, obviously I try to learn, if somebody's, if something that I think that is constructive, I listen to what everyone has to say. But generally, I tend to be pretty self-aware, so I'll usually know if I did something wrong or whatever. But I don't really dwell too much on it, because, I mean, you can't fix it. So you just got to do it better next time, so you can't really just sit there and be like, oh, that was terrible. Like, what is that going to do? Like, you can't fix that by saying that was terrible. You can only focus on what went wrong to try to do it better next time, instead of getting all worked up about it, because, like, that's not going to help you. So generally, I tend to not care too much. Like, obviously I try to learn, but I'm not going to beat myself up for something that already happened. I'm like, well, that happened. Okay, next.
No, I love that about you, man. That's what I'm learning. You're very, like, easy going in that way, and I love it. I think more people should adopt that style.
Yeah, and it's funny because
Lena Shetsko, sorry, no way. You're the huge inspiration and talent.
Oh, thank you.
She wanted to show some love.
Thank you. But yeah, what's funny is, I remember even when I was, like, younger, I remember I had this I played clarinet for something, and I started a song way too fast, but because I was like so confident, it seemed like the pianist was wrong, and I was just like, all right. And then afterwards, she actually asked me, like, "Hey, what happened?" I was like, "Oh, that was me." And she was like, "Oh, because it seemed like it was me." And I was like, "No, it wasn't you. It was me." But at least like I know.
That's an extreme confidence, man.
Well, I just like I go for it usually. If I don't go for it, then it's gonna show. And sometimes I do a thing where like because a lot of the times when you can't see on the guitar fretboard, you have to take chances. So more likely than not, there is somewhere where I'm gonna do a mistake. So I try to use that, especially if I'm improvising. I try to use that note and kind of like make it work in some way. So like if I go listen to it, I'll know that was the wrong note. But if somebody like you're like, all right, that could work. Like it's not necessarily an actual mistake, but a lot of the times it happens that I may like slide up to something or figure something out that works with that note in it repeated. So it's definitely a thing I use a lot because I don't know where I'm at on the fretboard sometimes, so I have to kind of be able to figure all that out.
Yeah, you just dive in. Like I love the not second guessing that stuff.
Not second guessing, but also using that mistake and making it not a mistake. So like I know that it was a mistake, but if it's repeated in the same spot later, then it's like, oh, that was actually a thing. So I try to remember and keep in mind of that because that happens all the time. Like it says.
Well, that's also the awareness of basically noticing that and saying, okay, I'm bringing it back. I'm repeating that.
I've always tried to be as self-aware as possible. So like, if I know that I have a tendency or whatever, like I try to be focused on it. Like, all right, that wasn't, that's not what I was trying to do. So like a lot of the times I know when I have a good take when I'm doing it. I don't need to listen to it. And I'll know, okay, that was a good take or that wasn't a good take or I can get away with that or I can't. So like I'm pretty self-aware when I'm doing it.
So how do you celebrate victories, accomplishments, good ideas?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I get excited, but it's not that I do anything. Yeah, I don't know. It's me, so I don't have to do anything. I get excited. It's like so my mood is up, but I mean, I don't need to do anything.
Good.
I know it's funny because like here I feel like a lot of people are like, oh, I'm gonna celebrate myself, and to me that's it's cool. I think it's great that people are doing that. I'm not against it. I don't know, like
not your thing.
I don't really see like that gives me anything. I'm like the fact that I've done it is what's good, so I don't need to do something else. Like it's not gonna be better than that moment. So
the celebration is in fact just being able to do the thing.
Yeah, exactly. That pushes you to move forward and do some other stuff, and then you think of like, oh, like I got this recognition, like I was, somebody that's somebody that's kind of bigger wants to play with me. All right, let me hit this person up. Like I try to think of it that way. Like those are the fun moments. Like when you're actually doing something that's rewarding, that's the moment. Like treating myself like I don't know. I think it's great that people are doing it. I'm not against it. I just don't even think about it honestly. Like,
just your celebration is the fact that you're doing it and having these moments.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't see like you can't really top that. I feel like so it's that.
So do you have any daily habits or rituals?
Not
if
really.
so,
no. I mean, I'm pretty easygoing.
You said you like going for walks and stuff.
Well,
do you find yourself
but I mean,
time to do that?
But it's hard to do where I'm at right now. And like if I have somebody that takes me, it's a little bit easier because it's not can be a little bit stressful. And like So like I don't really have a daily ritual like that.
I have a question.
Yes.
I can't see the user name fully, but says inspiration never stops with great players like you in the world. With what you've accomplished over the years, would you please suggest where to start with in the realm of jazz music?
Oh man, I mean, jazz, I would say like the simplest stuff is the blues, really, So, but I mean, like Louis Armstrong is great, Benny Goodman is great a little bit later, like all this simpler stuff. But I mean, the thing about jazz is like, you can learn all the scales, you can learn all that stuff, but really, learning the melodies of the standards is going to give you so much insight on the phrasing you need to use and the notes that work in the scale, because I mean the melodies already work in the changes. So like, I mean, a lot of the times when I approach a jazz solo, I definitely will bring the melody in at some point. Even if I don't know the whole melody, like I'll pick a line that I like and use it. So I mean, but it, you know, it is about like learning what scales you can use on whatever chord. But you know, if you're starting out, just learn some songs, you know, learn some songs and try to come up with some melodies that kind of come close to that melody. So you learn the original melody and then go off with it and think of something that could work with it. That's, you know, probably the best advice.
Do you like coffee, tea, or something stronger?
Tea. I don't drink coffee. I barely drink alcohol on like special occasions, but usually not on my own. Like if I'm out with somebody, like a friend or whatever, like I'll drink maybe like sometimes, but never really on gigs or anything like that. Because if you work a lot, like you're gonna have access to alcohol a lot, and it's like I'm not really trying to do that.
Yeah, it can be a lot because you know you're rubbing elbows afterwards and talking to people and all that stuff, and it's like it can definitely get.
Well, if you start making a habit and you're just gonna drink all the time, I'm not trying to do that. You know.
What do you think is the most misunderstood thing about you?
I don't know. A lot of people ask me some weird questions like, "Oh, how do you do that being blind playing guitar?" And I think that's a weird one because it's like I understand that they're coming from a place of, you know, like admiration, but obviously there are limitations about being blind, but it doesn't really stop you from playing the instrument because it's not the. I mean, sometimes you have to look at it, but I mean, my technique is weird enough anyway. I don't have a very conventional technique. It's kind of a mixed mash of so many different things, like from classical to, you know, modern finger style, and then like I want to obtain my own sound. So like, I'm sure everybody that watches me play, they're like, "What is he doing? Like, I don't understand." I'm like, I don't know. Like, I kind of, you know, mix it up, and I make people mad when I do that because like the classical player will say that I'm not doing it right. People that play finger style will say that I'm not doing it right. You know, people say that I play like a bass player. I'm like, okay, well, you know, I don't know. This is how I make the sounds that I want. But I mean, I think the main thing is that like people being weird about me doing that or traveling alone or all that stuff. I'm like, you know, there are some things that we can't do, but a lot of things we can do. But we are in a culture where like whatever disability you have is seen as like you need pity. And it's weird, like it's not really cool. And I think that stops a lot of people from reaching their full potential. I mean, I don't cook, but that's just me because I had a burn in my left hand and it's like fire and heat, like something that like I can't really be close to. If I really wanted to, I could probably work on it, but it's definitely not a blind thing. I know plenty of blind people who can cook. So, you know, like I'm not trying to send a message, oh, I don't cook because I'm blind, because that's a lie. You know, but
there's plenty of people who see that don't cook.
Yeah, I know, so. But I was just saying, like, you know, that it's misconception. Like, we can do a lot of things. You know, just because we can't see, it doesn't mean that we can't do something. You know, like obviously, driving would not be something we can do, but I mean, a lot of other things we can do. You know, so.
So you think those limitations that people try to put on others? You know, people saying the technique or whatever.
You don't have a chance to make mistakes, you know. So it's like because they're gonna get hurt or something is gonna happen. It's like you have this overprotective environment that you're put in, and so it's actually, and I know it for myself. Like I do a lot, but there is definitely a bit of me that growing up in that, like I can't do that, but sometimes I could, but I'm not necessarily, you know. Like didn't necessarily grow up thinking I could, so it's like it's actually hard to snap out of it. Even though you're like a grown person, it's hard to like completely get rid of that. And I mean, I say it for myself, like, you know, I mean nobody's perfect, but I definitely like I'm not that bad. I think I can figure most things out if I really want to. But there are certain situations where I get like a little bit frustrated. I'm like, I don't know, you know, and I probably could figure it out, but you know, because sometimes they're not really. You know, my parents were great. You know, like I'm not saying that we're bad, but like generally, that's why there are these misconceptions, because a lot of people with disabilities grow up in a way that it's not allowed for them to make mistakes and possibly, something going wrong. And so you just kind of don't really think you could do anything because you're not allowed to do anything. And
so people put more limitations on you than the ones that you are dealing with on your own.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. It's like once you grow up, like you convince yourself and you believe that you can't do it. And it's not necessarily a fault. It's just the way that you are raised and the environment you're in. And it's really hard to get out of that once you're older, because like you're already used to doing things a certain way. And, it's just not easy to get out of that mindset, So,
yeah. Thank you for that, man. That was really, sometimes it's like unexpected things that you take in, because you don't realize that like people, whatever their intentions may be, they might accidentally be putting more limitations on someone for their own fears more so than anything else. So that's interesting.
Well, of course, yeah. I mean, as a parent, like I get it. Like you don't want your kid to get hurt or whatever, but I think some of it is also controlling, because you don't, like, there is this misconception that if you have an issue, you are not capable. And so it's like, you just do it rather than, allowing the person to figure out a way that may not be what you want it to be. It's just a bit easier sometimes, But I mean, you do it with friends too. Like, it's not like I've seen people do it that are not relatives, Like I've seen people that I interact with on a daily basis that sometimes, make you feel like you're not, not capable, but just like they just assume. And it's fine. People, it's not a mean thing, I'm not upset. I don't really get mad about these kind of things. But
it could be personal awkwardness. It could be any of these things.
People, sometimes people, they know everything. Sometimes people just think that you may whatever. So like, I mean, I think it's always good to, ask and figure out the best way. Like, and I'm usually pretty good at telling people what I need, So like, I try to make people feel comfortable. I don't want it to be like a weird thing, like, oh, you're talking to the blind guy, like whatever, who cares?
Yeah.
Like, if I need something, I'll tell you. Sometimes I don't know, I may need something, so we'll figure it out together. Like, there is not always a solution for everything right there available. Like, sometimes you have to figure it out as you go. Like, you can't,
It requires communication, yeah.
Yeah, so that's the main thing. And,
I have a question from the feed.
Yes.
What are your favorite places to play in NYC and Brooklyn?
Man, I mean, play at Wild Birds every Wednesday, so that's a cool gig to have. I'm at Rockwood on 9/11. If anybody, I have the ticket is on my website. Stage 3 on September 11th at 9 p.m. I'll probably be playing our original music, putting the band together now. I'm gonna make a little clip video announcing that.
I'm gonna see if I can get my friend Jeff Taylor to meet you. He's also a musician. He's played Rockwood a few times, so
cool. That was awesome.
Maybe he'll pop through and say hello.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go through some of these questions here. Let's see. The gentleman who asked about jazz earlier said thank you.
Okay, welcome.
We kind of touched on this, but we'll see. What is your goal/dream in music for today?
Oh yeah, I mean, I was saying just like give back and bring to people that don't have as much access as I do, or people in this country. Not everybody has access in this country either, but like it's like allowing people to like give people a chance to do something without, because like I went to school and I had a lot of friends that were struggling because they didn't have the money, and it's like, man, like struggling through classes and not only having to worry about your class in itself, but not being able to pay for it, not being able to take it. Like, a few of my close friends had some issues with that, and it's like, it's hard, because you have a dream and you want to learn and you are not really allowed to, and it's like, it's not easy, definitely.
Especially with creative endeavors, because it seems like sometimes people forget how important music and entertainment and all these things are until something like a pandemic happens, and then everyone's like, they're thirsting for something to kind of...
Well, but what was weird about the pandemic is, like, at first, like, as soon as everything shut down, it's like the first thing that goes are the live shows. So you have to figure something out, and it's like, it's like, like people were like, "Oh, you don't have a job? Like you didn't blah blah blah." I'm like, "What? I was playing 6 nights a week. What was I supposed to do on top of that?" You know. So it's like I don't know what you really expect me to do. You know, because like even though you're coming to see it on your off time, this is what I actually do for a living. You know. So it's weird that some people were like, "Oh, but what's your real job?" You know, they didn't tell me, but I know people that have had that experience. You know.
Yeah. Before we wrap up, is there anything you'd like to share? Ways that people can support and reach out to help you continue what you're doing?
I mean, I think just keep supporting, sharing my stuff as much as possible. Try to get as much following and whatever. Like I'll probably start working on a record at some time in the fall, like once the work slows down. So that would be. I'll definitely announce it on here and on my website and everything. Come to Rockwood. Tell your friends about Rockwood on 9/11, Stage 3 at 9 p.m. That's going to be a super fun one. But I'll do other streams here on Instagram. But that specific gig, I'll probably play some music that I will not play before or haven't really played before live. So just trying to keep it like a special one.
You think you could play a little something off before we head out?
Sure, I guess I could. All right, let me.
Thank you again for doing this, man. It's very revealing and kind of lets me know the way that you look at things is really interesting to me, because I think I know a number of artists that are. I'm lucky to know a number of artists, musicians, etc., that are very relaxed in the same way that you are.
Yeah.
But to see it from you, and also the sheer volume of work that is creative and original that you put out, is awe-inspiring, man. That's
Thank you.
Just me being honest.
1 second. I'll take my headphones on for a sec so I can put my.
Yeah. Take your time.
1 second. You guys may know this one. It's just fun to play.
Yeah, man. You're the best, dude.
Little Jimi Hendrix.